Hey everyone, Ariel Adams here with aBlogtoWatch. Today I'm going to review and explain the Vacheron Constantin Traditionnelle twin beat perpetual calendar. This is a truly fascinating collector's watch that does a lot of novel features. Well, it was novel when it originally came out in 2019. I'll get to that. I'm going to start this video with some macro of the dial and the movement because I want to call a few things to your attention. There's a lot of context required to understand why this watch does what it does. It's easy to tell you what it does, but it's going to be difficult for many people to understand why Vacheron Constantin decided it was a good idea to engineer a watch that does this. I want you to look at what are two balance wheels sitting next to one another. One's in operation, the other one is not. One of them says 5 Hertz, one says 1.2 Hertz. As you can see, the 5 Hertz one is spinning right now. It's a little bit smaller, and it's spinning pretty fast. Now I'm going to push this button on the side of the case, and when I push the button, it's going to switch from one balance wheel to the other. Now you can see the 1.2 Hertz balance wheel moving there. It's slower and steady here. And if I push it again, it'll switch back to 5 Hertz. What I'm doing is I'm switching between the two modes of the caliber 3610 QP movement. This is a manually wound movement with a very long power reserve. And the way it maintains a long power reserve is by asking the user to decide, are you wearing the watch, active mode, or are you not wearing the watch, passive mode? And if you go back to the dial here, there's a little switch that you can see. It's a little indicator. And it's a mode indicator, and it goes between 5 Hertz and 1.2 Hertz. There's a black color for 5 Hertz and a red color for 1.2 Hertz. And when you look here at this pretty big power reserve indicator, you once again see the two colors. I'm going to move the hand there so you can see a little bit better. And when you look at the two colors, you see that the black one, which corresponds with the 5 Hertz mode, which means that it's using more power because it's operating faster, goes up to 4 days. But when you switch it to 1.2 Hertz mode, you get up to 70 days. It's a really long time. A 70-day power reserve is an incredibly long power reserve for a mechanical watch. People thought that 1 month was a long time, and now we have something even longer. We have 70 days. So that is incredibly long, and that's all part of one mainspring barrel. Just one mainspring barrel to power 70 days in this 1.2 Hertz mode. Now granted, you're not supposed to wear the watch in that mode. When you wear the watch, you're supposed to pick it up and put it into 5 Hertz mode. Before I pan out a little bit and show you the watch on my wrist, I just want you to get a good look at that mainspring barrel. That is a big mainspring barrel. I think it's one. I don't think it's two, but it's hard to see a little bit, but it's quite deep, which means it's not just large in diameter, but I also think it's thick. And that thickness, I think, is part of the secret which allows this watch to function the way it does. This is a really nice timepiece just from a luxury perspective. It's 42 millimeters wide. It's 12.3 millimeters thick in solid 950 platinum. Funny, I think platinum is like the new gold. I think gold perhaps is a little bit more expensive than platinum circa 2026 because gold prices are so high. So what you used to see is a lot of white gold watches. You rarely see white gold now. You see solid gold in the form of yellow, maybe the alloys of rose gold. You know, of course, 18 karat, it's not solid 24 karat gold, but you have more gold watches that are gold color. And when you want this color, you just have platinum. They don't even go with white gold. Now, in terms of watches, platinum is going to make it heavy, but sort of in the good way. You like the feeling. So let's go back to the history of this watch a little bit and discuss a little bit more about what Vacheron Constantin was trying to do with the original caliber 3610 QP. If you look on the movement here, it's very difficult to see. The label doesn't just say 3610, it says 3610-2, which means this is the second version. In 2019, Vacheron Constantin first came out with the Traditionelle twin beat. And I remember it. It was the very last iteration of SIHH, which has been replaced by Watches and Wonders. And I wasn't expecting it. This is a company that has a special department to make movements and design them. So they're entirely capable of this, but I didn't necessarily anticipate they would do something that was so, well, connected to the tech generation. This watch doesn't really solve any old problems. It kind of solves new problems. I mean, yes, it's an old problem to have a long power reserve and want to mix it up, but the thing that people are trying to do today with luxury watches is make sure that people touch them and engage with them. The more someone plays with these watches, the more someone has the ability to check out what's going on, the more endearing it is. So brands like Vacheron Constantin decided that their watches weren't going to be like the Japanese type of watch, where you just wear it and you forget it. It always tells the correct time. You never have to think about it. Vacheron Constantin and other Swiss brands, especially ones in Geneva, kind of want you to, I don't want to say baby their watches, but pay attention to them. Give them lots of care and attention. And this is proven to help actually with customer attention and getting people excited about a several $100,000 mechanical watch that's not quite a toy, if you want to call it that, but is not something you need. So even though there is a very real story about giving a watch high performance and high longevity, the real reason that a watch like the Twin Beat was developed was in order to satisfy that emotional need for a customer to want to play with their watches. And there's different ways of doing that. There's a chronograph, which essentially is a stopwatch you play with. You start and you stop it and you reset it, but that gets boring. You have various types of calendars, which I guess you can play with, but really you just can set it and look at it. And there's all the different options out there about watches you fiddle with. A minute repeater, that's a great option, but it'll break after a while. I imagine it will. This is an interesting mixture between I want to play with my watch and I want it to be fun, but there's also a real reason behind it. So Vacheron, in their infinite cleverness, honestly, decided to make the caliber 3610 QP, which means it also has a Quantième Perpetual, which is a perpetual calendar, which is funny. It's like they just decided to throw that in there. But to make this as a highly engaging watch for modern audiences that are used to playing with things, fidgeting with things. So yes, people always needed longevity and always wanted to sort of balance accuracy with the length of the power reserve. And this could have been interesting and relevant decades ago. I just don't ever see something like this being made. This is really a function of a generation where playing with your watch, messing with it, being able to fiddle with it and fidget with it is really important, especially at the very, very high end. I'm not trying to diminish the achievement or what Vacheron Constantin has done here, but in the past, having a system like this would have been wildly expensive, more so than maybe the utility of what it does. So yes, this is sort of an interesting concept that's purely mechanical, but it's a product of today's luxury watch market. And for that, I think it's very interesting. The reference number of the Vacheron Constantin Traditionelle Twin Beat Perpetual Calendar is the 3200T/000P-H167. And this is not a limited edition. I believe the 2019 version was a limited edition. And there's very few changes to this one. There's a few changes. The most notable change is even though the caliber name is more or less the same as the 3610, yes, this is the version 2, this one has a slightly higher power reserve, 70 days versus 65 days. So going back to the scale there, you'd have to look very closely, but the original one said 65, now this one says 70, and that is a modest upgrade. There's some other really small differences. I photographed the original 2019 Twin Beat and I tried to see what's different about it. And almost nothing. The movement is more or less the same. There's some small marking differences. Both of them have the Seal of Geneva. The Poinçon de Genève is a very important indicator of aesthetics and quality and performance, and of course, origination, because it means that it was produced within the Canton of Geneva. Both of them had that. I think the hands on the perpetual calendar are a slightly different color. I think they're sort of a white color here for a little bit of added legibility. I think they were a darker gray color on the original Twin Beat. The funny thing is, like I said, you could enjoy this watch and never even know that it has a perpetual calendar. And again, this perpetual calendar is a wonderful complication and people love them. But the funny thing is that the real interest in this watch is the switch between the 5 hertz and the 1.2 hertz mode. Of course, the design. Look at those beautiful hands. I mean, this is, of course, just part of the Traditionelle collection. That's where the case shape is in the hands, but it just looks so nice. Not everyone's into the partial skeletonization, but I don't mind it, especially since you still have a full set of hour markers and the hour minute hands are so legible. And then there's the perpetual calendar. You have a very small leap year indicator there close to the 6 o'clock position. And yes, it's nice to have a perpetual calendar, but again, the irony is that you just, you see it as sort of a secondary thing. It's sort of like they put it as icing on the cake, but it's still delicious cake without the perpetual calendar. And other watches completely revolve around the perpetual calendar. Vacheron loves throwing in a calendar here or there, wherever they can, and we love them for that. As I said, this watch is 42 millimeters wide, which is, it's considered big these days to have a 42 millimeter wide watch. That was considered medium, or at least average size for a long time. I don't want to say that it's too large. It's definitely not oversized by any means, but at 42 millimeters wide and this thickness, it feels large, honestly, because I'm wearing a lot of smaller watches these days, but just over 12 millimeters thick and 42 millimeters wide is not wild, especially with that power reserve. 44 days in the 5 hertz mode, which is pretty good. I don't know a lot of other 5 hertz watches that have that length. And then 70 days in the 1.2 hertz mode. Now, again, to explain how it works, remember, there's a manual element here. It's manually wound and manually set. So I'm wearing it right now, which means I'm moving my wrist around. Moving my wrist around moves the balance wheels in different positions. The faster the frequency, the more these errors related to gravity and vibration and shock get canceled out. That's because the balance wheel is moving faster. So that's why you want a higher frequency in a movement that you're wearing or that's moving around a lot. But when I'm putting the watch down, I'm not wearing it, no movement. It's not being exposed to vibrations, and the balance wheel is in the same horizontal position. It doesn't need to move. That means the higher frequency isn't really necessary to maintain higher performance over time because there aren't going to be fluctuations. You can have a regulated 1.2 hertz movement, which is about as accurate as 5 hertz, provided there is stability to the movement. If it's not moving around, then it's not really going to matter. So if you understand horology and you understand how movements work, this is a very clever, we'll call it solution. It's somewhat experimental. I don't really know how it works out in practice. I'd have to spend a lot more time with a watch like this to determine, are you actually getting accuracy? How much better is it? But you know what? It doesn't matter. The bottom line is that you have the combination of high frequency for accuracy, and then you have low frequency for longevity. That makes this a dual personality watch. They call it the twin beat. They called it the two-face. There's a lot of different ways of describing the personality of a timepiece like this. I find it fascinating. I love telling the story of it. It's comfortable to wear. It's interesting to look at. And even though this is definitely a niche timepiece, in the world of high-end niche timepieces, it's such a fantastic collector's thing. And I'm so glad that Vacheron Constantin decided to come back out with the twin beat again. I thought it was going to be sort of a one-off thing. And they didn't really decide to change too much other than upgrade the movement a little bit. Maybe there'll be different materials in the future. No idea where they're going to go with this. Once again, this is the Vacheron Constantin Traditionnelle Twin Beat Perpetual Calendar. It's not a limited edition. 42 millimeters wide, 12.3 millimeters thick in a platinum case. Retail price is 282,000 Swiss francs. And you can see the full review and discussion of this watch on the aBlogtoWatch.com website. Let me know what you think about the Vacheron Constantin Twin Beat in the comments below. Thanks.